the transition that happens somewhere in late October, early November, these bulls, the mature bulls, go from being solo in the post-rut where they just left the cows and they're like, for a couple weeks, I'm going to try stay alive, try not get shot, and I'm going to hide someplace where no one's going to find me. Well, after a while, they start forming back into bachelor groups, kind of like they were back in August, early August.
Yep.
So to me, that's kind of when we switch from late season or post rut to late season, is when you start seeing bulls in bachelor groups. Now you know you are on full fledged late season. They're going to be in bachelor groups, so it's easier to see. You're probably going to have colder weather, so they're going to have to start feeding some. And so they're going to be out longer in the morning. They're going to come out earlier in the afternoon.
Are they
And
moving more? Because that's in the post-rut, and we're literally, I mean, right now we're at that transition point, or we're getting there. And
mm-hmm,
I've spent the last week out scouting for rifle season for elk during the post-rut, and this year it
yeah.
seems like, at least in my area, it hit a little earlier than normal, the post-rut. It seemed like the rut tapered off faster, and there's not
Mm-hmm.
the. I've only heard one bugle since August, whatever, or sorry, October 8th or so. And usually
Yeah.
we have good bugling or decent bugling up till about the 15th, even, 18th or so. And this year it just seemed like it tapered off really quickly. And what
Mm-hmm.
that means is trail cameras I have out, I have two cows and a spike in the last 10 days on a trail camera.
Hmm.
Nothing's moving. There's no
Yeah.
tracks anywhere. There's nothing moving. They aren't talking. It's
Right.
like the elk completely disappeared. And, there's still the
Yeah.
same number of elk on the landscape as there was the day before,
Right.
but they just aren't moving. So,
No, that is a factor of the post rut. They, especially the bulls,
yeah.
they know that moving means risk. And the more movement you have, the greater the chances are you're going to end up in someone's freezer.
So do they start
And
moving more?
yeah,
Obviously, they're out
yeah,
longer feeding, but are they
right.
traveling longer
Yeah,
distance and they're starting to venture out a little more?
yeah, they will. They now in the late season, they're like, look, we got to get to where the best feed is. We just burned all of our fat, or most of it, in the last 8 weeks. We gotta at least maintain till the snow buries all of the food, and hopefully we can eat enough that we can put on a few pounds. So to do that, they got to go to where the better food is, and they're going to go to where the food isn't as covered up by snow or is dried out. Uh, they're pretty particular. Well, obviously, they're all things being equal, they're going to go to where was the luscious spot this summer, because the snow is going to have a harder time covering that taller forage. It's more abundant forage. So if they spend all the energy to paw through it, if they have to, there's more there for them. And they know this, right? They live there. They're like, oh yeah, over around on that northeast side there where that little spring comes out, man, there's really good grub there. I'm heading over there.
So that
And,
brings up, you just triggered a thought, but
mhm,
cattle. If there
mhm,
were cattle there in the summer, they ate most of the feed down. So
right.
elk
Yeah.
in the late season are probably going to avoid areas, even though the
Yep.
cattle aren't there now, they're not going to be as likely to be found in areas where there was cattle in the summer because the feed is not,
Oh,
it's just not
abs
there.
that's why, people who aren't familiar with our rotation systems and our grazing allotments in the Rockies, a lot of those get rotated. Okay, this pasture, and so you see fences. A lot of people are like, "Man, I saw a fence up on the national forest. What's the deal there? Was that a boundary fence?" No, it's an allotment fence so that the the public land grazer can move his cattle based on what his rotation requirement is by the Forest Service or the BLM. So if there is an allotment, you can get a hold of the BLM or the Forest Service and say, "Hey, there's an allotment here. Can you tell me which pastures or which part of the allotment were grazed this year?"
Hmm.
And don't hunt those ones. Go hunt the other ones, because the elk are going to hop that allotment fence and they're going to stay over there where the cattle haven't mowed it all down.
And I thought, people ask all the time, do cattle get along with elk? And I'm always thinking September time frame. And I've never really seen sheep yeah, elk will avoid them, but elk will mingle with cattle. And I think, my experience has been cattle don't eat the grass all the way down to the dirt like a sheep
Right.
does.
Right.
And so there's still feed there for the elk to mingle with them.
Hmm.
But when things freeze up and you get 6 inches of snow, it takes a lot more work to find that feed. And so if they can go a place where there wasn't cattle and get that taller stuff like you're talking,
Yeah.
man, see, Randy, I've already learned something.
Well, I mean, that's the beauty of why now all the online mapping companies have the act that there's a layer you can put, hey, allotments. And if you're doing late season elk and it's all about food and sanctuaries, don't be hunting allotments that have had the heck grazed out of them. There's
Yeah,
somewhere else in that unit, somewhere else on that mountain where you're going to be able to find forage that the cattle haven't hit as hard or haven't hit at all.
yeah,
And that's where the greater likelihood of the elk being, because who wants to go paw through all that snow and then find out the cattle ate it all?
yeah.